Am I ready to start reviewing some John Wick movies? Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to the road to John Wick Chapter 4. I'm covering all of the John Wick movies that have been released, all three of them, in honor of John Wick Chapter 4 coming later this month. And I'm so excited to review all of these. I actually watched this one, the first John Wick, for the first time in a very long time. And spoiler alert, it's fantastic, but more on that in just a minute. The first John Wick was directed by Chad Stahelski, a noted stuntman for his work on The Crow and the Matrix franchise. And the movie starred Keanu Reeves, John Leguizamo, Michael Nyqvist, and Ian McShane, among others. It tells the story of, well, John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves. When we pick him up at the start of the movie, his wife has just passed away. And in her stead, she has gifted him a dog named Daisy. And even though I'm a cat guy, that's a very adorable dog. However, after a run-in with some horrible Russians and then breaking into his house, stealing his car, and killing said dog for the crime of, let me check my notes here, not selling him his car, John Wick basically, well, his rationale becomes this.
See, as you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
And as we come to find out, John Wick is pretty much the perfect assassin, an ass-kicking machine who retired and was supposed to be left alone, but now he has been provoked and he is going to stomp mud holes in everything and everyone. This movie came out in a time where really all of the perfect timing and elements were just in the right spot for everyone involved in the production of this. The screenwriter for this, Daniel Kolstad, had been struggling for years ever since he had began as a screenwriter in the early 2000s. It wasn't until 2012 where he really found success and was inspired to make this movie because of two horrible revenge movies that he had watched one particular weekend. My research didn't really say which movies he watched, but they must have been pretty bad. He took inspiration for it from those two movies and basically penned a script that saw an older hitman in his 60s or 70s seemingly retired with his dog and then, well, having to be forced back into that life. So basically what we ended up getting, however, instead of John Wick being in what I assume is his mid to late 40s when we see him, to be in his mid to late 60s. In my research, it's said to be something along the lines of a Clint Eastwood or a Paul Newman type of character. However, that was retooled to make it a vehicle for the main man, Keanu. And John Wick really could not have come at a better time for Keanu Reeves, because at this point, he had suffered several commercial failures, and at that point, he had been reduced to kind of a meme, just basically this. Whoa! Someone who was once awesome in the late 80s and 90s, but had fallen on hard times in his career. Well, this movie pretty much launched him back into superstardom, to the point where he has been working steadily ever since. There's been another Matrix movie, but let's not talk about that. And, well, there's a chapter 4 of this coming out. So, in many ways, when John Wick says, "Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back," you could pretty much tap that as Keanu Reeves saying that. With how far the John Wick movies have come since this one, it was so strange to go back and rewatch this. Strange in a good sense, because with the ending of John Wick Chapter 3 and just the introduction of the High Table and just this vast network of assassins, you would have never known that this would have happened in the first John Wick, because the first John Wick is very isolated, it's very contained. There are allusions to the High Table, however, it's not really introduced. We feel the presence of it through the Continental Hotel and the various rules therein, that being no business is to be conducted on Continental grounds, so on and so forth. We have the cleaning crew, you have the cops seemingly on the payroll, and of course you have the Russian mafia. But there's a vast network. It's an octopus with its tentacles and everything. However, it's more alluded to than actually shown. And it's weird because at this point, we're getting, like in chapter 4, we're getting John Wick seemingly challenging the head of the table, played by Bill Skarsgård, I want to imagine, to single combat to get him out of it. And it's a whole big thing now. And it all started out with a guy who was formerly just the most feared man in the world, retiring, taking a load off, and seemingly riding into the sunset. However, that was just never in the cards for him. But I love this movie. It's honestly kind of shocking how well it is hold up. Like nearly 10 years later. It's crazy to think that this movie's almost 10 years old, but it's this is just a fantastic action movie. The first half of this movie by itself is just wonderful stuff. Just from the very beginning to the traumatic incident of the dog dying in the break-in and all that, to John Wick saying like, "That's all I can stand. I can't stand no more." And then him going and unearthing his chest with the guns and the gold, all soliloquied by Michael Nyquist's narration of the Baba Yaga and the whole story of how he retired and the impossible task. It's just fantastic. The second half is just as good, with John Wick being on the hunt for the worst Nepo baby you could ever imagine, and taking out all of that chapter of the Russian mob within. And it's just, they're basically grass, and he is a John Deere. He's just mowing through all of them. But what makes the movie work is just how the action is helmed. There is not a single ounce of shaky cam in this. Everything is told so well. And really, the geography of how everything looks and feels, there was practical stunt work done, and it really shows. It really did help that Chad Stahelski directed this, since he's so well known for his work in stunt work. He had just enough story, that being John Wick is this guy who was formerly the best at what he did, but he left, and just enough reason to why he has to go back. And it almost feels a bit like a tragedy, in the sense that he was supposed to be set, but, well, the criminal world just wasn't done with him yet. And now, as we have seen in later movies, he's basically in deep, and he is trying to get himself out of the quagmire, but it's just a fact where he takes one step forward and gets 5 steps back down. But this is not just the Keanu Reeves movie. We got Ian McShane, who's really good. You got Michael Nyquist, who is just fantastic as the head of the Russian mafia. You got the dude who is in those Allstate commercials, the Mayhem guy. He shows up in this. I'm pretty sure Wesley from Daredevil season 1 is in this as one of the associates. He gets drowned in a sink, and it was weird seeing him. You get random-ass Kevin Nash in one scene as a bodyguard. I did not expect to see him, but it was also nice to see him. And then Willem Dafoe is in this, and he's really good in the scenes that he has. And unfortunately, spoiler alert, he doesn't make it out alive, which is really sad, because I would have liked to have seen him in more of these movies. But, you know, it was just a one-shot deal, I guess. Nice to see him, but I wanted to see more of him. But really, the movie does a great job of showing a greater story, but keeping it small, in that the action's big, but the reasoning why this is all happening is very human and very simplistic. Not childish, but simplistic. It's something that we all can kind of relate to, in a sense. Now, we're all not doing what John Wick does in the movie. That would be just completely mental. But in the sense that John Wick was supposed to have the storybook ending, and it was taken away from him. And so he's just like, all right, you guys are dead. Of course, this movie gets an amazing grade. It is just a fantastic piece of work. And really, for some, this is the best John Wick movie, and there shouldn't have been the other parts afterwards. I personally love all of these movies, and I am so looking forward to revisiting all of them. And coming next week will be John Wick Chapter 2. But if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below. And if you like this video, you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.